For just about every salesperson that I've ever interacted with, one of the things that's a pretty serious struggle, especially if you're a motivated salesperson, is knowing how to tell if you're doing enough, if the amount of like front end sales activity that you are trying to kind of pump out is sufficient to kind of keep the opportunities flowing. Um, uh, Another thing that's always really difficult too is to consistently hold yourself accountable to doing both enough activity and the right type of activity. And I think part of why that's difficult is because it is so emotionally challenging to be a seller, to be a salesperson, that you're perpetually going to find ways to trick yourself into believing that you're doing the work whenever you're actually avoiding some of the hard parts of the work. And right along those same lines, another thing that I think is always a big challenge is if you are a leader of salespeople or a leader of a sales force, it's also really, really difficult to know how to train your sales force and how to do the right kind of work, hold themselves accountable and do all those same things too. It's hard to know how to do that. So one of the things I want to talk briefly about is a system that can kind of help with that. So this is kind of a recommendation. It's a framework. It can be customized, re-engineered for your specific context. But I'm hoping that this can be helpful to you as you think through your own circumstances and how to kind of like gauge, measure your own sales activity and or to supervise the folks that you're responsible for. So what I would like to share with you is a document that is kind of like a handy dandy daily sales activity tracking item. That also has some instructions and some rules of thumb on the document. So this is what it looks like. It's a daily sales activity planner, and it's broken up into 4 blocks. And the way this document is set up is that if you wanted to, you could print out page 1, page 2, and then it's in landscape mode. Then you could fold it in half, stick it in your back pocket, stick it in your notebook, and carry it around with you throughout the course of the day. So this document uses the metaphor of farming as a way to think about your sales activities. And it blocks your daily sales activities. It divides them up into 4 categories or 4 blocks. So those categories are plant, see that right here, water and feed, another block of water and feed, and then a block of harvest. So what this document is designed to help you do is to make sure that you are, when you plan your day and you plan your sales activities for the day, that you're making sure that you think about nurturing opportunities all the way through your pipeline, and that you're not focusing on just one part of the pipeline, but we're focusing on putting new stuff in the top. That's the planting of the seeds. We're focusing on moving things down the funnel. That's the plant and feed portion of the daily sales activity planner. And then we're also focusing on making sure stuff comes out of the bottom of the funnel, and that is the harvest. So conceptually, that's what this document is about. So let's talk a little bit about, on a definitional way, these 3/4 categories. So when we talk about having a daily plan for planting seeds, what do we mean by that? Well, planting seeds are first contacts with new prospective clients. So those are your initial overture to do business with someone. Now it could be someone who you already have a relationship with, you already know somehow, maybe from your social circle, maybe you've crossed paths with them in a professional environment like a trade association or a chamber of commerce or something like that, but you've never actually introduced the topic of doing business together. So that would count as a first contact. A cold call would count as a first contact. Reaching out to someone that you've been referred to, that would count as a first contact. So all of those things are first contacts with a prospective client. So the goal here is you don't have to do everything all at once, but the goal is to just initiate a relationship that you reasonably expect could lead to future business. That's all the goal is. That's all the seed planting is that we're trying to accomplish here. So we're just trying to open the door to the possibility of growing a relationship over time that could eventually lead to business. So that's the plant category. The next category, we've got 2 blocks, but there's 2 activities here, water and feed. So again, thinking about our metaphor, the farming metaphor, the seeds are in the ground. We want those seeds to grow. How do we make sure that they grow? Got to make sure they have the ingredients they need to grow. We got to water them. We got to feed them. So what's the water and the feeding contacts? So those are repeat contacts with people that you've already initiated a business, attempted to initiate a business relationship with. So maybe they are clients who have done business with you. Maybe they're prospective clients who are open to the possibility of doing business with you, but they haven't yet. But the goal in these contacts is to cultivate and nurture that relationship in a way that moves you toward the goal of engaging in business. So that's the goal, cultivate and nurture. So how do you do that? Well, there's lots of ways that you can do it. One suggestion, one strong encouragement would be when you're making these contacts to mix up the ways that you make the contacts. So vary your methods. Are you somebody that does a lot of email communication? If you're looking to cultivate a strong relationship with somebody, maybe don't just rely on email. Pick up the phone sometimes, give them a phone call, maybe even drop by their office, just drop by and pop in, see them in person. All you have to do, even if you don't get the opportunity to have a long conversation, the indication of your willingness to make an effort that goes along with showing up in person can be very impactful. And in some respects, if the person doesn't have time to talk to you right at that moment, but they see that you made the effort to come say hey in person, that might make them more inclined to make time for you at a later date. Another thing too that's worth mentioning too is that texting is another written form of communication that's got all the same kind of like asynchronous, time efficient sorts of benefits to emailing, but texting is a little bit more personal than the email. You're officially in each other's cell phones at that point. You've got like a real-time direct line to that person. So when it's appropriate, maybe a little kind of text heads up is a good way. But again, the big thing here is mix your methods. That's part of what can allow for healthy growth of that relationship. And then also too, don't forget about face-to-face interactions. If it's been a little while since you've had one, even if you don't have like a pressing need to have one, come up with a reason to check in and have like, coffee, lunch, cocktails, something along those lines, and try to get a face-to-face scheduled. Or maybe come up with a fun event that you're going to be at anyway and invite that person to join you. So don't forget about varying your methods. Another thing that I think is worth thinking about in this part, the moving it through the funnel part, is what I sometimes refer to as the 1-2 punch. So the 1-2 punch is build the relationship, ask for business. Build the relationship, ask for business. So we all know that salespeople kind of get a bad rap. And one of the reasons why is because sometimes salespeople can be pressureful and it becomes unpleasant to interact with somebody. So what can you do to counteract that idea? Well, one simple thing you can do is be the one that takes the pressure off. Don't just ask every time you interact with somebody, but think about also having interactions that are just about building the relationship. So here's a few ideas for what that could maybe look like. So one thing is, as you get to know someone and you get to know about them personally, maybe every so often, drop them a text or an email where you pass along something that you came across that you think is interesting that relates to something they're interested in. So is that person a triathlete? They've done triathlons? Well, maybe if you come across an article in your Apple News feed about something that happened at a triathlon, shoot them a text with a link to that article. Here's a fun little thing to consider too. You don't have to just wait until something like that pops into your head. If you see that you need to have an interaction with the prospect, they come up on your, whatever kind of like reminder system you have in your CRM, and you think, the last couple of times I talked to them, I was hitting it pretty hard on the asking for the order, asking for the business end of the spectrum. I think I just want to kind of like have just a friendly touch with them this time. I remember that they're a triathlete. I'm going to go find an article about triathlon and I'm going to send them that. So it doesn't have to just be happenstance. You can just find it. You can still tell the prospect or the client, hey, came across this when I was checking up on the news this morning. It made me think of you. But it's okay to be intentional. So Some other things that you can do, recognizing significant dates is always fun. So like their birthday, maybe their work anniversary. This is something that can be a good way for you to use your LinkedIn network. LinkedIn has a lot of information like that about like work anniversaries and things like that. Even if it's not a specific, anniversary, maybe you're not 100% sure the day that they started, but if you happen to see on LinkedIn that this is the 20th year at the company, that will be worth mentioning at any point in the year, Um, so milestones like that. Also milestones in your working relationship with them. So if you happen to notice that like, oh, it was 5 years ago that we completed that project for Joe, hey Joe, just was thinking about you today because I happened to notice when I was looking at my calendar, we completed that project 5 years ago today. And it really brought me back when I was thinking about those months that we were working through that project together. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to let you know I was really appreciative of that opportunity and I'm looking forward to working with you again in the future. Simple little thing like that, fun little touch point, nice relationship builder. And then lastly, another just idea, two quick ideas. One, also celebrate successes. That's another thing that LinkedIn can be really helpful for. Also, if you have any like trade publications, again, going back to trade association, chamber of commerce, if there's a newsletter, you see somebody listed in there or you see their company listed in there, great excuse to drop them a line and say, hey, congrats on the promotion, congrats on sponsoring the golf tournament, glad to see things are going well for you. Looking forward to connecting when we get the next opportunity. That kind of stuff is also potentially a great way to build that relationship. And then lastly, holidays. So obviously like kind of Christmas, New Year, kind of end of the year holiday cards, those are great. Also thinking about other things too, like maybe like a Veterans Day note for people that are service people, or maybe had family members that were armed service people. 4th of July is another, or Memorial Day, or other good times for people in the armed forces or people that are particularly patriotic, or maybe first responders or things of that nature. Also, I think Thanksgiving cards or Thanksgiving notes are a great one. That's one that I myself have become a big fan of. But just dropping somebody a note and just saying, hey, it's that time of year when we spend a little time remembering what we're thankful for. And when I was doing that, I thought about you, and I'm really thankful for the relationship we've been able to build over time, the business that we were able to do together this year. I just wanted to let you know that I very much appreciate the relationship, and I hope you are doing well this holiday season. I think that's a great one. And then one kind of piece of advice on that topic, and this is particularly true with kind of like, the Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year's holiday cards. Don't be afraid to consider sending your business contacts your family's personal card, whatever you're going to send out to your friends and family. Maybe think about that being your holiday contact with some or all of your business contacts as well. Let it be from wishes from your family. Have the return address be your home address. That is potentially extremely positive. I'll tell you a quick story about that from my own experience when I was a hustling sales guy early on in my own career. I sent out, on the advice of a mentor, Christmas cards to every single person that I met and added to my CRM. So I would send out lots and lots and lots of Christmas cards, but I just went to Sam's and got like a family photo Christmas card, a very inexpensive one. And just Merry Christmas from the Wrights. And I sent that out to every single person that I had in my CRM. I had a situation where I got a phone call from someone after I was maybe 3 or 4 years in the business, went to their house to meet with them. They were looking to sell a business. They needed some advice about selling the business and then kind of the game plan for what would come after that. But in the course of the conversation, one of the things that I noticed over the shoulder of, I can't remember if it was the husband or the wife, but one of the two, is that on their refrigerator, they had my family's Christmas card from like 3 years prior. And I just noticed it and it registered. So I thought whenever I got the incoming phone call, this was from someone, I didn't know where it came from. I didn't recognize the phone number in my phone. I didn't recognize the name of the people. But as it turns out, I had met them whenever I was kind of canvassing a neighborhood years earlier, added them to my CRM, and then wasn't able to get back in touch with them. So eventually I deleted them from the CRM because I didn't have any other successful attempts to get in touch. But what happened in that window of time before I deleted from the CRM is that the holidays rolled around and I sent them a Christmas card, and they had it on their fridge for like 2 or 3 years. Never underestimate the power of kind of just that personal interaction, that personal contact, because for some people, they don't get a whole lot of it. And when they get even a little bit of it from you, it can be dramatically impactful, and they can end up feeling very connected to you, in this case, even for years, because of that. So little story on that front. So that's block number 2 and 3, the water and feed. Sometimes what I have found with salespeople that I've worked with, been around, it's very exciting to plant the seeds, to have that initial rush of the new opportunity. It's also very exciting to harvest. That's when you actually get something. It is a little bit more of a grind to do the watering and the feeding. But most of the time, relationships are going to take a decent amount of watering and feeding before they are going to grow to the point where they're ready to be harvested. So don't neglect this part. This is maybe the most important part of your process. Then lastly, the harvest. So, we don't want to forget to actually go out there and, bring in what we've been working so hard to raise. So the harvest contacts, those are your best opportunities to get something. So getting something, the big one would be like a sale, an order, a booked job. But it could also be an appointment, so you can kind of finally get a meeting with somebody. It could also be, sorry about that. Let's get back to, it could also be a referral. It could be a bid request, kind of the invitation to bid on a job. But another thing that I think is worth mentioning too is sometimes in the harvest phase, that's whenever you get the opportunity to find out about a future opportunity for work, or a future opportunity to do business. So let's say, for example, that you are in the real estate development business, and one of the people who you are interacting with is a real estate agent who you think could be a source of letting you know whenever properties that fit your model for the development work you're looking to do, when those might hit the market. So, one of the things that could happen is you could have a meeting with one of these real estate agents. They could say, I found out that there's a property. It would be perfect for, one of those condo conversion projects that you do. And it's looking like it's going to hit the market in about 6 months. Man, that's awesome news. That's like very, very important. So that would be an example of a get. So now you have to make sure that you have a good system in place to be able to, put that on your radar so that you're ready to go get that business when the time comes. And to also maybe think about filling in that window of time between now and when the opportunity comes with a few water and feed contacts as well. So, but that's what you're trying to get in the harvesting phase, is something where, accomplishment happens. So here's a principle that I think is important here, is you have to hold yourself accountable to asking for the business. And that's what can make the harvesting phase sometimes a little bit emotionally challenging for some people, especially if part of what you find yourself doing is reminding yourself that you're doing okay, because boy, oh boy, if you look at your pipeline, you've got so much good stuff in it. Well, one of the ways that you start to thin out your pipeline is you finally ask people to move the thing from the pipeline to actual realized opportunity. Asking for business, even if you get it, thins out your pipeline. And I've had many instances with salespeople that I've worked with where the fear of the pipeline getting a little bit thinner is kind of overwhelming. It's scary, and it almost freezes those salespeople, and it makes it hard for them to muster up the courage to ask for business. So hold yourself accountable. Ask for the business. It's very hard to get the business if you don't ask for the business. So those are definitions and a couple of principles to think about with each of these blocks of contacts, with planting the seeds, watering and feeding, and then ultimately getting to the point where you're ready to harvest. So how do we actually take this information and translate it into a functional way to use this document here at the beginning? So that's where we get down to the rules. So here's what I want to challenge you to think about with this tool, or maybe your own modified version of the tool, as a way to help you plan your activities and hold yourself accountable to doing the activities. So rule number one, start filling out the sales activity planner that you're going to work through tomorrow. Start filling it out before lunchtime today. So start to populate these fields before lunchtime today. So how would you do that? Well, one of the ways you can do it is before lunchtime today, get into your CRM and look at clients and prospects that you have scheduled activities for that are coming up tomorrow. And start by putting those people into your sales activity planner in the appropriate spot. So if you're supposed to call someone tomorrow because you know that they have a project that's a perfect fit for you, and it's based on your notes, it should be ready to go. Maybe that's a harvest opportunity. So you want to put them, you want to add them to your planner for a harvest opportunity. Or maybe it's someone who you haven't had an interaction with for a couple of months and you're due to check in with them. They would go in water and feed. So start filling out your sales activity planner before lunchtime today. Secondly, you've got to have your sales activity planner for tomorrow completely filled out before you go to bed tonight. So when you go to bed tonight, you've already got your sales activities for tomorrow mapped out. You already know what you're going to do tomorrow. You don't have to get up and get it figured out. You've already got a game plan. Now, one thing you might ask yourself is, what about that plant the seed part? How am I supposed to do that? Well, obviously, like, you're probably not going to have like name, phone number, or whatever on there. Maybe you will, but you might not either, because those are like the first contacts. So for the plant the seed portion of your planning, my suggestion is come up with the game plan for how you're going to plant those seeds. Even if you don't know the names you're going to kind of put in there just yet, come up with the game plan. So let's go back to my example of being involved like in a trade association or a chamber of commerce. One great way to do the plant the seed thing is to say, okay, I am going to maybe call through or email through the directory for that organization. And that's how I'm going to do my plant the seed work for tomorrow. So when I'm at that part of my day where I'm ready to get that part of my sales activity knocked out, just pull up the directory. Maybe it's a paper directory, maybe it's online, and just go right down the list. Don't think too much about it. Just go down the list. Okay. Here's, Mike Smith with ABC Company. I don't know who Mike is. I'm going to fire off an email, or I'm going to call him and I'm going to just say, hey, Mike, my name's Josh. This is my company. This is what we do. You and I are a member of the such and such organization together. I've made a lot of great contacts with other business people in that organization. And I was just reaching out today because I'd love to introduce myself and my business to you. If you'd have the time, I'd love to, buy you a cup of coffee and take half an hour to tell you my story and hear yours. Give me a call back when you can. Here's my phone number. That's a great plant the seed contact. You make it, write it down in your log, move on to the next one. So that's how to handle the plant the seed part. But the preparation for tomorrow is to know what that game plan is going to be and notate that maybe up on the top of the plant block of activities. So number 3, your day isn't done until you've both completed all the activities in your daily sales activity planner for today, and you've gotten yourself on track to complete your activity planner for tomorrow. So that's when you've had enough activity to finish your day. So if it was on the list, you did it. Now, what happens if you have somebody in your water and feed thing, and you called them and you just left a voicemail? That's okay. You made the phone call. You did your best. You made the effort. Just record that, and then make sure that you roll that forward to whenever the appropriate time frame is for you to follow back up with that person. So how do you do that? We're going to move down to the next rule. Your daily sales activity planner complements your CRM. It does not replace it. So one of the things that you need to be prepared to do with your activity planner is to make sure you have a game plan and you're budgeting enough time to be able to get that information into your CRM and to be able to get the CRM information about what's coming next back out of the CRM and onto your planner for the next day. So, and I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, but yeah, so let's say that I have one of the things that I do today is I have a face-to-face meeting with someone. And at that face-to-face meeting, they refer someone to me. They refer another general contractor to me. And in my business, that's who I call on primarily. All right. So one of the things that I would do in that scenario is for tomorrow, my daily sales activity planner for tomorrow, for the plant the seed part, I'm going to write the name of the person that I was referred to and their phone number there. And for notes, I'll put referred by, so-and-so at lunch yesterday. So that's something I'm going to call tomorrow, but I'm also going to make sure I record that information in my CRM because that's valuable stuff that I don't want to lose track of. I don't want it to just exist on my paper planner and never make it into my actual CRM for me to refer back to and for my team to be able to see. So that's rule number 4. Make sure that you're working with your CRM, not in lieu of it or against it. Next rule, do not fool yourself. When you're making these contacts, you're selling. And when you sell, you are trying to get business done. So part of what that means is make sure you approach these contacts with intention, with a purpose, with a game plan. Another way of saying that is that I think one of the things that's a kiss of death for a lot of salespeople is either kind of like purposeless small talk or what I always refer to as the check-in of death, the check-in phone call, the check-in contact. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, this is Josh Wright from such and such company. Just calling to check in, just see how things are going. Is everything good in your world? Great. Okay, well, hey, if you need anything from me, just let me know. That is not a sales call. Is there the possibility that there is some relationship nurturance that happens? Maybe. But here's something to think about, right? Imagine that you are that client or that prospect, and you get a contact like that, and you get done, you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, he's checking in, okay. But then you get a month or two later, another contact like that, just checking in, seeing how things are going. At some point, one of the things that's going to happen is you're probably going to start to think like, I don't totally understand what the intention of this guy is when he reaches out to me. I don't understand what his game plan is. I don't understand what he's trying to accomplish. And when that happens, you're not moving in a positive direction on the trust meter. You're starting to move in a negative direction. And in the negative direction is not good at all. You'd be better off not making the contact than making a contact that pushes the needle backwards. So make sure that you have a purpose for the call. Now, calling to congratulate them for something you saw in the business journal, that's purpose for the call. So there's relationship building calls that can still have purpose. But if it's not something like that, if it's not a build a relationship, but you're on the 1-2 punch of now it's time to ask for the business, hold yourself accountable, make sure you ask for the business. It's hard, but that's what a salesperson's job is, to ask for the business. Don't fool yourself. Next rule that I want to talk about is that if you start this process, it will produce results, but the results will not be immediate. So a general rule is it takes 2 or 3 months of consistent daily execution before you will start to see an increase in your harvest from using the daily sales activity planner or using a system like this. So you have to put in a consistent effort. If you don't put in a consistent effort, it's very similar to what I did in a science project when I was in grade school, where I planted some peanuts and I was supposed to wait for them to sprout. That was part of my science project. And on day, I don't remember what day it was, like day 3 or 4, I was so worried that they weren't sprouting that I dug them up to see if they'd sprouted and started to put down roots. They had. So what did I do? I tried to bury them again, and guess what happened? They never grew. They never grew after that. So a similar sort of a thing happens if you're like, you know what? I've done this for a week and a half and I don't really feel like anything's happening. Or maybe it's not even that you don't feel like anything's happening, but maybe you just get busy because you've got stuff to do. Well, if you really want to get results, you have to consistently execute on front-end sales activity to really drive revenue, to really move the needle. So count on it taking 2 or 3 months of consistent daily execution. But here's the good news, and this is the final rule. Once it starts, even if you get bad at the execution, which I'm not recommending, but even if you lose momentum in the execution department, you will continue to see a harvest in many cases for many, many months once you start to see results. So that's another thing that's kind of worth keeping in mind, is that once you kind of get the momentum built, it's going to have a tendency to kind of carry on its own. I want to tell you a quick story about a salesperson that I worked with. This has been many, many years ago, but I can remember from a calendaring standpoint when we did some of this stuff. So I started coaching him in the summertime. And one of the things that we did initially is we worked on figuring out like what a good sales process looked like for his business. But we came up with that. And then we also introduced this sales activity tracker. His goal was to make 40 proactive sales contacts per day. So the format that I've taken you through in this chart here shows you the exact same daily sales planner that we used for him. So we started that in the month of September. And part of the reason why I can remember that is because we were having regular check-ins. Initially, it was just holding him accountable, making sure he was executing on a daily basis, which is hard to do. It's very hard to do. But one of the things that happened is that he didn't have a whole lot of activity right away that resulted from this work. But one of the things that I remember, and he talked about that, and I told him, give it. So I said, sorry for the disruption there, but I said, continue to give it an honest effort. It just takes time. Well, December of that first year, so it was 3 months after we started working on this on a daily basis, December of that year, he had his biggest revenue month he'd ever had in the history of his business. He was super stoked, very pumped, great way to end the year. And he was very encouraged. He continued to execute. And then the next year, one of the things that happened by the time we got 1 year ahead, we got to the end of that next calendar year. One of the things that he and I talked about in one of our sessions is that he said, what's crazy? I just looked back at this past year and my average monthly revenue for this year was higher than it was for December of last year when I had my best month ever. And that best month ever was my first big impact month that was a product of the work that I did in the daily sales activity planner. And then that momentum just continued because my average month for the next year was better than that best month ever that I had in December. So hopefully that's a story that can encourage you. And what am I trying to encourage you to do? Think about a daily sales activity planner type of tool, whether it's this one, there will be a link in the description, print it out, use it, develop your own based on these principles, but come up with some sort of a way to use this kind of tool in your business. Stick with it, and I think you will see monstrous success. And if you need help, that's part of what we are here for. Reach out. The link to Apex Management Solutions is also in the description. We'd love to support you. And best of luck in your selling endeavors.